Today marks 100 days since Nancy Guthrie was abducted from her Tucson home. Together, the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have been working to process all the information and evidence found during the investigation.
97 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie has been missing. Then, on a quiet stretch of Tucson desert near North Craycroft Road, a live streamer's camera caught something white sticking out of the dirt. Within minutes, police tape went up, officers swarmed the scene, and the entire country froze. Was this Nancy? After waiting for so long, the Guthrie family braced for the worst. But what investigators found next was even stranger than anyone expected, and it changed everything about where this case is heading right now. The bone that stopped the country. The morning of May 7th, a true crime live streamer named Alec Wisapol was walking through the desert near North Craycroft Road and East River Road. He runs a small YouTube channel called A JW News, and he had been doing his own searches for clues in the Nancy Guthrie case for weeks. On this particular morning, his camera was rolling when he spotted something pale poking up from the ground. He froze. Then he called the police. Within 10 minutes of Fox News digital reporter Mike Ruiz's arrival at the scene, yellow tape was already being stretched across the area. Officers were photographing the soil. The location sat roughly 7 miles from Nancy's home in the Catalina foothills. For the Guthrie family, who had spent over 3 months praying for answers, this was the moment they had feared since the very beginning. One officer told Wisapol on camera that the area was a historical burial site and that the bone looked at least 50 years old. That estimate sent the live stream into chaos. Viewers flooded the comments asking if this could be Nancy. Within hours, every major outlet in the country had picked up the story. Then came the official statement that nobody saw coming. Tucson police spokesperson James Horton issued a clear and careful update. The bone was indeed human, but it was being classified as a prehistoric anthropological investigation. The University of Arizona's anthropology department had been called in, along with the Pima County Office of the Medical Examiner. This was not a criminal case. A second spokesperson named Bo Wilson repeated the same message to KVOA News, confirming there was no reason to believe this discovery was tied to Nancy. The northeastern Tucson Basin sits in the heart of ancestral Hohokam territory, a region that local tribes have referred to as the land of those who came before. Cultural specialists from the Tohono O'odham Nation have said for years that development across the basin continues to unearth ancient remains. The bone found by Wisapol was almost certainly one of those discoveries. For the public, the relief was immediate but short-lived. Because while one fear was quietly put to rest, a new question began to rise. If this bone meant nothing, where is Nancy actually being kept? And why are investigators now whispering about something far more disturbing? The walk-off that NBC tried to hide. The day before that bone was found, something unusual happened on live television. Savannah Guthrie quietly walked off the Today Show set 90 minutes into the broadcast. Her co-anchor Craig Melvin smoothly told the audience that she had to leave a little early and would be back tomorrow. To most viewers, it sounded like a routine appointment. But for those watching the case closely, it was the second time this had happened in just weeks. The first walk-off had occurred during a segment with Anne Hathaway. Hoda Kotb was suddenly slotted in after a commercial break with no explanation. Producers gave no public reason. Now, on May 6th, Savannah was gone again at exactly 8:30 in the morning, 30 minutes before the broadcast was set to end. A Page 6 source quickly claimed her exit had nothing to do with her mother, and that she was simply leaving for some sort of appointment. But there is a detail the public was never supposed to know. An insider at NBC told the Daily Mail that the network has built a specific code phrase around Savannah. If a producer tells her she is needed off-set, that means there has been a development in her mother's case. She would be pulled immediately, even in the middle of a segment if necessary. They would walk her into a private office and tell her the news, while another anchor would simultaneously break the story on air. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer reacted to the May 6th walk-off within the hour. She posted publicly that every time Savannah unexpectedly leaves the show, she feels a flicker of hope that there may finally be a break in the case. The public agreed. Social media erupted with theories. Was something happening behind the scenes that NBC was hiding? There was one strange twist that nobody could explain. On that same morning, one of Savannah's old high school teachers from Tucson was standing on the Today Plaza holding a handmade sign. Jenna Bush Hager ended up interviewing the teacher in the empty seat where Savannah should have been sitting. Savannah later thanked the teacher on her Instagram stories with heart emojis, but she never once mentioned why she had to leave. Either NBC is telling the truth, and this was just an appointment, or the network has been quietly preparing for the worst kind of breaking news. And the deeper investigators dig into what happened that night, Nancy disappeared. The more terrifying the picture becomes. Porch Guy and the Theory of the Boss. On May 6th, News Nation aired a special report that introduced a theory so disturbing it has reshaped the entire investigation. 3 of the country's most respected criminal profilers sat down with host Brian Enton and laid out what they believe really happened. Dr. Ann Burgess, the legendary Boston College professor who helped found the FBI Behavioral Science Unit, paused mid-sentence during the broadcast. She had a thought, she said. The masked man captured on Nancy's doorbell camera may have been eliminated. When Enton asked by whom, Burgess answered with chilling calm. The boss. She believes this crime was meticulously planned and that the operative at the door was just a disposable piece of a much larger operation. Dr. Gary Brucato went further. He called the doorstep footage amateur hour based on how the suspect was holding his firearm. The pistol was tucked into the waistband with no holster, a style retired Arizona Department of Public Safety Lieutenant Dave Smith has identified as Mexican carry. Brucato argued the man was hired and then neutralized to sever the link between the orchestrator and the crime. He profiled the masked man as someone who, if he is still alive, will eventually lead investigators down a spiderweb of connections to a person who is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Dr. Casey Jordan offered her own profile of the suspect. She estimated he was 27 or 28 years old, definitely a local resident, and probably no longer in the area. She also pointed out something investigators have been quietly considering for weeks. The front door and back door were used by different people. The suspect was at the front, while the back doors had been propped open. That detail suggests at least 2 operatives working together. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer added her own analysis that has unsettled everyone watching this case. She studied the 3-second clip of the masked man frame by frame. She noticed that he had his head down and beelined directly toward the camera. He knew exactly where it was. That kind of knowledge does not come from a random burglar. It comes from someone who had cased the house before, or someone who had been told exactly where to go. If Coffindaffer is right, then the person who took Nancy was never a stranger. And if Brucato is right, then the only man who could identify the real mastermind may already be buried somewhere in the Sonoran Desert. The sheriff who could lose his job on Tuesday, while profilers were dropping bombshells on cable television, a quieter but equally explosive crisis was unfolding inside the Pima County Sheriff's Department. On May 5th, FBI Director Kash Patel appeared on the Hangout with Sean Hannity podcast and made an accusation that shook the investigation to its core. He claimed the FBI had been locked out of the Guthrie case for the first 4 days. Patel said the first 48 hours of any disappearance are the most critical, and during those critical days, the Bureau was kept on the sidelines. He revealed that the FBI had a fixed-wing aircraft ready on the ground in Tucson to fly DNA evidence directly to Quantico the very night it was collected. Instead, Sheriff Chris Nanos had the hair sample sent to a private lab in Florida. That sample then sat untouched for 11 weeks before finally being transferred to the FBI laboratory in mid-April. Sheriff Nanos pushed back. His department issued a statement claiming the FBI had been promptly notified by both his office and the Guthrie family, and that coordination had begun without delay. But the damage had already been done. Now, the Pima County Board of Supervisors is preparing for a vote tomorrow, on May 12th, that could remove Nanos from office entirely. Supervisor Matt Hines has been leading the effort. He told Arizona Luminaria there were significant deficiencies in Nanos's response that put him at risk for removal. He repeatedly insisted the Guthrie case is not the reason behind the vote. The real reason is something much older and much more damaging. Years ago, in a sworn deposition for an unrelated lawsuit, Nanos denied ever being suspended as an officer. The Arizona Republic later uncovered records showing he had actually been suspended 8 times during his early career at the El Paso Police Department. Among the listed incidents were beating a handcuffed suspect until the man required hospitalization, threatening to waste a witness, off-duty gambling, and making a false statement. He resigned in 1982 in lieu of termination. Whether tomorrow's vote keeps him in office or ends his career, one thing is clear. The man running the most watched missing persons case in America is fighting for his own survival. And that fight may be the reason this investigation has felt so paralyzed. Money, whispers, and a house someone wants. While public attention has stayed locked on Porch Guy and Sheriff Nanos, a quieter and more painful storyline has been simmering inside the family itself. An investigative reporter named Jonathan Lee Riches posted a series of claims on X in early May that lit up true crime circles overnight. According to Riches, a source very close to the family told him that Nancy's daughter Annie had asked her mother for money before the disappearance. Nancy reportedly said no. Riches followed up with an even more pointed claim. Someone, he said, was already planning to move into Nancy's home. He never named that person. International Business Times UK reported on the allegations, but explicitly noted they could not independently verify any of it. The whispers grew louder when former News Nation host Ashley Banfield publicly suggested that Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, should be considered a prime suspect. Tommaso was the last known person to see Nancy alive. He had driven her home that night and personally walked her to the door, making sure she was safely inside before leaving around 9:50 in the evening. Megyn Kelly later reported that Savannah was livid about Banfield's comments. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffendaffer stepped in to defend Tommaso firmly. She said there was no physical corroboration when comparing his face, his mannerisms, or the way he walks to the masked man on the porch. She called the speculation absurd. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has publicly cleared the family as suspects, but Sheriff Nanos himself muddied the waters in a separate interview with reporter Brianna Whitney. When pressed about which family members had been ruled out, he said something cryptic that has haunted true crime watchers ever since. Nobody is cleared, so either the family has been quietly hiding a quiet, ugly truth, or the public is being baited by unverified claims from a single blogger. Either way, the rumors have not stopped, and they keep circling back to one uncomfortable place: the border just 60 miles south of Nancy's front door. The Mexico connection. Nobody wants to discuss. For weeks, investigators have privately wrestled with a theory that goes far beyond Tucson. Retired Arizona Department of Public Safety Lieutenant Dave Smith told Fox News Digital that his first thought in any major crime is always Mexico. The reason is brutal but simple. It is a great haven for criminals, and it is incredibly hard for American law enforcement to follow up across the border. Smith noticed something specific in the porch footage. The masked man was wearing his pistol Mexican carry style, tucked into his waistband with no holster. Combined with the proximity of Nancy's home to Nogales, just 60 miles to the south, Smith believes this case may have always pointed across the border. He suggested there was a deliberate effort to keep federal agents out of the investigation, because once interstate or international transport is suspected, the case becomes federal jurisdiction. There is one painful detail about Nancy's own life that makes this theory even harder to ignore. Her late husband, Charles Guthrie, died of a heart attack at age 49 during a mining trip to Hermosillo in the Mexican state of Sonora in June of 1988. The Guthrie family already lost one member in Mexico. Now, the country may be at the center of losing another. In April, 2 new ransom letters were sent anonymously to TMZ. One claimed Nancy was already dead. The second claimed the writer had personally seen her alive with kidnappers in the Mexican state of Sonora. Mexico's Security Secretary, Omar Garcia Harfuch, told the New York Times in late February there was no indication Nancy had been brought into the country. But the letters keep coming. A Mexican volunteer group called Madres Buscadoras de Sonora, which translates to Searching Mothers of Sonora, flew to Tucson in late February to help with the search. The group was founded by a mother named Ceci Flores Armenta and has helped locate over 5,000 missing persons across Mexico using pickaxes, shovels, and a fierce social media presence. The Pima County Sheriff's Department denied them search permits. Officials said the work was best left to professionals. The Madres distributed flyers in Spanish anyway and were photographed quietly walking through neighborhoods near Nancy's home. They left Tucson empty-handed, but they did not leave silently. And the question they raised still hangs over this entire case. If American investigators will not look south, then who will? Mother's Day and the promise that was never made. Sunday, May 10th, was the first Mother's Day Savannah Guthrie has ever spent without her mother. She marked it with an Instagram post that has been shared millions of times. The reel showed quiet moments of Nancy laughing, hugging her grandchildren, and standing in her sunlit kitchen. The song playing softly underneath was titled, "May You Find a Light" by The Brilliance. Her caption was direct and raw. Mother, daughter, sister, Noni. She wrote that the family misses Nancy with every breath and that they will never stop looking for her. She said the family will never be at peace until they find her. She begged anyone with information to call 1800-CALL-FBI and reminded the public that tipsters can remain anonymous while still claiming the reward. That reward now stands at $1.2 million. The FBI initially offered $50,000. They doubled it to $100,000 on February 13th. The Guthrie family then personally added $1 million on February 24th. They also donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The case has logged over 13,000 tips to the FBI Phoenix office alone, with the Pima County Sheriff's Department fielding nearly 18,000 additional calls. Outside Nancy's home, just before Mother's Day, someone left an anonymous note among the bouquets and candles at the makeshift memorial. The note was addressed to the abductor. It read that the abductor's own mother would be ashamed if she knew what had been done. It demanded the person take Nancy home or tell the family where she is so they could celebrate Mother's Day together. Elizabeth Smart appeared on CNN's Erin Burnett Out Front a few days earlier and refused to let the family lose hope. Smart was kidnapped at 14 and recovered after 9 months in captivity. She told Burnett that Nancy could absolutely still be alive. She cited cases that have spanned many more years than her own and ended with the victim returning safely. J.C. Dugard came home after 18 years. The 3 Cleveland women who escaped Ariel Castro's home in 2013 had been held for over a decade. Smart said, "Until we know otherwise, we have to keep looking." The final piece of forensic hope sits in a laboratory in San Francisco. A company called Astrea Forensics, which famously cracked the Gilgo Beach case by extracting DNA from rootless hair strands, is believed to be analyzing the mixed DNA sample recovered from inside Nancy's home. Sheriff Nanos has said separating those genetic strands could take 6 more months. 6 months feels like a lifetime when an 84-year-old woman is missing her daily heart medication. What do you think really happened to Nancy that night? And is she still out there waiting to be found? Drop your theories in the comments below and let us know who you believe is hiding the truth.